Tales from the Tavern was recorded in front of a live Twitch audience.
I'm Commander Shepard, and Tales from the Tavern is my favorite stream on Twitch.
Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode of Tales from the Tavern. I hope you all are doing well this Sunday. If you have been at Gen Con this week, I hope you had a great time and stayed healthy and met lots of very cool people. If you were like me and not at Gen Con this week, happy Sunday. So I am here with an amazing group of people that I am very excited to have on. A few familiar faces, a few not so familiar faces to the stream, but familiar faces in the space. So I would like to go around and have everybody just introduce themselves, tell us a little about who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna let Homie and the Dude, Bodhi and Tom, kind of go together and tell us a little about themselves.
Okay, so we're Homie and the Dude, the father and son TTRPG and MMA team. I'm Bodhi, the son, and we do a whole plethora of different stuff at this point in our space. But you know, we predominantly focus on D&D and like the actual play that we run and that kind of space. As well as that, we also very much focus on MMA. We love mixed martial arts and the beauty of combat and that kind of stuff. So we very much go into each sector. But you can find us at Homie and the Dude on all platforms, all that kind of stuff. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Tom. I'm the dad. You wouldn't recognize it, but I am the dad of the team. Yeah, with regard to D&D, we're focusing on the actual play is really taking up a lot of our time. Love it. We have a great cast. But we also dabble in NPC, stat-blocked NPCs. We are also dice makers, believe it or not. And
not successful ones, but we do it.
It is a learning curve, let's just say that. And yeah, it's been, and we're also kind of moving towards a Kickstarter as well. We're excited about that. So really, really happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to getting to chat. And next we'll go over to Maitre. Tell us a little about yourself.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Maitre. Maitre Games on Twitter and Maitre Plays Games on YouTube. I invite myself to games that people are too polite to say no to, and that's why I'm here today. Because so we're too nice to say anything about me being here. I'm really am kind of obsessed with trying as many new games as I can because I want to be exposed to as many different kinds of mechanics, different play styles, different GM styles as I can, because I selfishly feels like it makes me a better GM and a better player to have that experience. So that's what I do, and I try to use that experience to create some tabletop content on YouTube, which is what I've been doing recently. And if you're looking for something a little different in your tabletop content on YouTube, I hope you'll check me out.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad you invited yourself to come on and hang out because I'm really looking forward to getting to chat with you.
It's going to be so great.
I know.
Is that the secret? I didn't know that was a secret.
Oh, it
You just
is.
go and-
It is.
Okay.
Everyone is so nice and so kind. You just have to take advantage of it.
Oh my gosh. Benjamin, tell us a little about yourself. Cracks knuckles.
Hey everybody, I'm T2 Benjamin. You can find me on Twitter at T2Benjamin1 and at Great_Lawful. I'm the host and Dungeon Master of the Lawful Great Adventures podcast, a Pathfinder First Edition podcast about 4 friends on a long journey home. You can also catch me on Thursdays at Atomic Zero's Esper Genesis Revelation stream where I play Asimov, and you can also catch me on Roll for Chaos on Fridays where I play like 8 freaking characters. I swear to God, Ty, if you're watching, you gotta stop. I'm also getting. I see you, chat. I'm also getting into content creation. I recently released a game on Drive-Thru called Eichel, which is just a little tiny tavern-style board game, and I am working on a full release Kickstarter game called Adversary that is currently in playtesting. So, if anyone would like to try to playtest Adversary, which is a card-based narrative game, kind of like A Quiet Year, but like hard. Then hit me up. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a great time, and it's neat. Anyway, I don't have any more talk fast stuff. So
Okay.
That was impressive.
That was impressive. And he was able to do it all in one breath because he's also a musician. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. All right, Ben, it's good to have you back. I'm excited to have you here. And if you're listening to the lovely music in the background of this stream right now, which unfortunately our guests cannot hear unless they're listening to the stream itself, the wonderful creator Kai Ellen is the one that we can thank for all of this this wonderful tavern style music that we have in the background. So Kai Ellen, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kai Ellen. I am a tabletop RPG musician-composer these days. Also a longtime GM and player, of course. In protest of the dystopian society in which we live, I no longer exist on any social media, so if you're looking for me, you'll have to find me a different way. I did write the tavern music that you're hearing now. I also recently accepted a recurring role on a wonderful podcast called Tale of the Manticore, and if you haven't listened to it, you should.
my personal favorite podcast.
I'm now a player character of season 2, which I'm very proud of. So that is what I've been up to. My most recent tabletop RPG album is called 10 Minute World Volume 1, because I intended to make more. And it contains 5 10-minute atmospheres of different moods that you can just put on in the background while you play. It will not interfere with your gameplay, but it will enhance it, or so I hope. So,
well, I can actually speak from experience with that because the day that it released, I had a D&D game that night, so we used it in the background.
Wonderful. That's what I like to hear.
Yep, it was good. It was great. It was nice and chill, like just enough for everybody to kind of be like, oh, there's music playing, but not enough to detract from the game, so it was great.
Precisely my goal.
Yes, it was awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, we've already had a question come in from chat, so I'm going to quickly explain for the people who are new here a little about how this works, and then we'll dive right into the questions. If you're joining us for the first time, basically the way that this works is everything that we're going to talk about tonight comes from questions that chat asks us. So if you have any questions that you would like to have this crew answer, please feel free to drop that right in the chat. Moderators are standing by, and we'll make sure that we get the question in order to be able to talk about it. We do have, if you've been around for a little while and you've got some channel points racked up, we do have the Ask My Question Next feature. So for 1,000 channel points, you can have your question bumped up to the next one in the queue, and we will answer that one as soon as we finish the one that we're talking about. If you okay, one of my moderators said that he's sitting, so he's sitting by. Yes.
It's better that way. We like chairs here.
We do like chairs here. I mean, if you would like to stand, I suppose you could, but I am a fan of sitting at my desk. So that, and it's a little too low for me to stand at comfortably. So there's that too. All right. I am going to start off with the first question that we got, and that actually came in from Zeal Zaddy, and Scott would like to know, excluding Critical Role, what streams brought you into TTRPGs online?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll jump in with that straight away. For me, so I played D&D when I was younger, when I was about 13, and we played like 3.5 at school, and that was really nice. But I kind of lost touch, and I refound the space through Node, a YouTube channel that is like in conjunction, together with Corridor Digital, and I watched their kind of actual play for a little bit, but then eventually we were recommended Acquisitions Incorporated, and from there just completely fell in love with D&D, watching Chris Perkins do his thing at like PAX East with all those guys, and having Patrick Rothfuss on stage and whatnot was pretty incredible. And then since then, things like, being in the UK, High Rollers, Dimension 20, Cast Die podcast, a bunch of others. But yeah, it all really started for us with Acquisitions Incorporated.
Yeah, very much so. I just loved the improv was incredible. The comedy was incredible. The DMing was awesome. And the actual scene, the amount of stuff, whether it was costumes and other bits and pieces, minis, maxi minis, whatever that they were bringing in was super, super infectious. And we were off from there.
Yeah, we were locked in.
I just have to follow up with the fact that
go ahead.
I am a PAX East fanatic. I go to PAX East every year and have since 2012.
Amazing.
Nice.
Anyway, go ahead, Benjamin. Sorry.
Someone that streams as much as I do, I actually don't have the patience to watch them. But I am a big Dimension 20 boy. So but I actually got into this space via the podcasting world. So your Taz's and those ones. That's kind of where I got into it. So, but but no, I think Dimension 20 is just like the most like dynamic and exciting representation of the game, like at play. I also appreciate. I know not everyone is like really, really super into like the adversarial DM play style, but Brandon Lee Mulligan just does it so well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Big fan.
I don't have an aside from Critical Role, because it was Critical Role for me, but in addition to Critical Role, it was not streamed, but Matt Colville's YouTube videos for that Running the Game series, because like Matt Mercer makes it look easy, Matt Colville makes it sound easy. And like between the two of them, I was like, I can totally run a game. And that was what gave me that made me stop being so intimidated, really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
I gotta say, just to answer the question briefly, the thing that made me realize that D&D could be online was definitely Critical Role. It took me, I don't know, I must have been a year that I just was like, no, that's not a thing for me. I don't need that. And then I got to the point where I work IT, by day to pay the bills, and at some point you're coding and you need something playing in the background, and so I would just listen. I actually listened to Critical Role more like a podcast.
Nice.
And then I would go back when I hit a really good point in the audio. I'd go back later and rewatch that in the video to experience it. So I never watched any of it live, but I podcasted and streamed the video for all of season 1, and then immediately fell off the wagon. So there you go.
Sure. So that's a
really good
point.
question. Yeah.
How does everyone feel about the length of episodes for Critical Role? Because I know
Too
a
long.
lot of people.
I break them up, but I love them.
I will
you have a
outright
strategy.
say I have not watched a single episode of Critical Role.
Oh man, I love it. I'll watch it again for you.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question as well following that. Kylan, you mentioned that sometimes you would listen to it, but on moments that you felt were big and impactful, you would switch to the video. Now, we for our actual play, we do it video. We do a video stream, but I know a lot of people, choose to do just audio. What is it about for you that made you want to go back and watch the video, even though you've got, and for a lot of people they find it satisfying enough to just listen to the audio. But what was it that drew you back to the video and background into that?
That's a good question. So I think it's that. Well, probably part of it for me is that I am a rewatcher anyway. So I'm a person who likes to see things more than once. You know, I'm not necessarily satisfied with experiencing it once, because I find there's usually extra layers when you experience it a second time, right? But beyond that, like there's just, especially, you know, I can really only speak for season 1, but there's times when the energy at the table changes. You know, like I could listen to the shopping episode in audio, that's fine, like I don't need to see that, but but some of the impactful fight scenes and stuff, and when you hear Mercer like drag out the terrain, like, okay, there may be something in another input that I could benefit from. I think that's what it came down to.
Yeah, action plays are very visual medium for me. Like I don't listen to them in podcast format.
Yeah,
it's funny because I'm the total opposite. I kind of like Ben. I don't sit down and watch them, but I will listen to them. I listen actively to like 3 or 4 at a time.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Benjamin. So D20 love them. I'm sorry. But there was a moment where they were doing some, because I guess it was because of COVID, it was some remote playing as well. So did you find anything distinctly different from their in-person set where they're all sitting together and the remote play? I mean, was there a decided sort of difference in the quality or your experience in that?
Ben doesn't, hang on. Ben doesn't have to answer this question about D20. He can answer it about literally his own game.
Right, yeah.
No, so I'll say this. I haven't actually watched. I've only seen the at the table stuff. Always in retrospect, never live. I just don't. I don't know. My schedule is nuts. I can't watch anything live ever. I can tell you my experiences though, switching from at the table to online. And that is, I do prefer like the at the table energy. It's just way more dynamic. That being said, I don't have any problem with like online stuff. Some of that stuff's really great. I've done games online that are just like fantastic and they're a good time. It's just different. Where things get weird is when you have to switch from one to the other. And that was my experience with Awful Great Adventures, because we started shortly before the pandemic. We had been going for about 7 months before the pandemic started. And then, like, all of a sudden, we went remote, and we stuck it out for a couple of months, and then finally, we all kind of collectively decided, like, hey, let's take a break and maybe do something else. So I did some side content, and then when we were able to get people vaccinated and get back going and cases were coming down, that's when we came back to the table. But it's just, it's the table for me, y'all. Like, that's where I live. Yeah.
What were you guys finding? What made it become a thing where you were like, nah, this isn't the same? What were you missing?
So the delay, the lag, you'd be surprised at how much that messes things up when you're used to being at the table. Like, the chemistry's just different. But also there's kind of an environmental, there's a vibe to it, right? You're at the table, everything's out in front of you. It's just really dynamic, the sights and the smells and just sort of the feeling of being near people. And then you sort of get in character and there it is. Whereas I feel like, sitting in your own living rooms or couches or offices or whatever, it was a little harder to immerse. And our show was all about, like, we just like immerse really deeply. Not a lot of like big fourth wall breaks, that kind of thing. And so that's the experience. I found it harder to immerse online after having already been at the table. Once again, that being said, I've done plenty of online games where I had no problem whatsoever. So I think it was just the attempt to do the energy shift that threw it off for me.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think for me, so when I started getting into online play, it was literally like at the same time that I got into streaming, and so the actual play that I was streaming with was already an online group, because like I'm in New Hampshire, somebody else was in New York, somebody else was in Nova Scotia, that sort of thing. So so that alone was already like, okay, we're gonna make this shift into playing online. None of us had ever played in person anyway. Through the course of getting to play online, though, like my history up to that point had always been playing D&D, literally D&D, with like the same 5 people for 10 years. Like, not the same campaign for 10 years, but the same 5 people for like 10 years. So it super opened up the number of games and the number of people to play with and the different play styles and, you know, stuff like that. So for me, it was a great experience in that regard. But similarly to Benjamin, I like sitting at the table in part because I'm not tempted to look at Facebook while I'm sitting at the table. I'm not tempted to, you know, do a lot of other stuff that I would do while I'm sitting on screen because, you know, like, oh, if I'm scrolling through Facebook over here, nobody else on the screen can see that I'm doing that, you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, it's that kind of thing for me. But like I said, at the same time, I learned a lot about what I do and don't like at the table from playing online. So, you know, it was, yeah.
I think
You know what's-
my
I'm just-
experience is likely very different from all of yours. Out of the hundreds of games that I've played over the last few years, maybe like 10% of them have been in person ever. Like, and it was really only Shadowrun that I played in person, and 2 D&D one shots. But ever since then, any GMing I've done, any other systems I've played, I've probably played with just this variety of different people. I've gotten to experience a whole bunch of different systems, and honestly, like playing online, like as a brown woman, and a disabled brown woman, frankly, like I didn't really have the same access to a friendly local game store that like a lot of people have. Like I don't have that. I physically can't enter some of them because of mobility issues, and B, like it's not the same. It's just not the same when I'm there. I don't have the same experience, and so I don't. I found that my access to games opened up when things moved online, and I run a campaign. We just hit our like 25th session. I think I've played about, it's awesome, and I think I know this number only because I recently did a count. I don't just like keep this number in my head, but I've played about 40 systems over the last 3 years. 40, like, and
Awesome.
because I've played online, and those systems have been with like different groups of people, and generally, like, somehow if you're okay to play online, you have access to these incredibly prolific players, like the folks here who are really invested in tabletops. You're not playing with Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know what I mean? You're playing people who are elevated in their knowledge and their experience. So I've had an incredibly positive experience online.
That's super
great.
interesting.
Yeah, I have too, actually, over the last few years. So I'm not sure whether the friendly local game shop is a myth or not, but I think it might be.
I don't know, man. Many people talk about it. It must be real.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I don't.
Kyle and I found one near us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you about it later.
Is it friendly or is it just local?
It's friendly. I actually
right?
went in the other day and had a great conversation with the owner.
I was gonna say I can think of a couple, but
it's a fairly new one in the town just south of where we live.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the one that took the place of the very unfriendly one.
Probably. It's right near the really good pizza place.
Oh, then it is okay. We'll talk.
For those of you who haven't figured it out, Kyle and I live in the same town.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So
I mean, there's another.
Oh, good.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
Okay. So like for me, you know, most of my experience has been in my own house. Like I started playing. I've told this story before, but my parents were college kids who played D&D in the 80s. So I started playing basically as soon as my imagination came online at age 6. So I've got a long history with the game, and most of my experience playing for my youth was in my own house. When my dungeon master moved away, then it was me running the games from, for my teenage friends at UNH, because we would walk downtown after school and take over. We'd be the high school kids taking over the room in the college meeting house to roll dice and get weird looks. But as I grew up and as I turned into an adult, that just sort of stopped happening. Like, all my friends disappeared, and it really started up again when I started playing online. And now I have a group with whom I have run 1 or 2 games a week for 5 years. Same group of guys.
Wow.
Amazing.
It's awesome. It's fantastic. And and I've been lucky enough to meet Ben and Rabbit and Luna. Being on stream and on podcasts and stuff has been a different experience for sure. But yeah, I kind of love what online has done. I definitely feel that I agree.
I was talking to someone the other day about just the internet in general, and just how it feels like it's a pretty messed up place a lot of the time across multiple platforms of what it's doing to society and a lot of different areas. And they were very much the point they made though was it's really nice that the level of accessibility that it provides people, and especially since the pandemic,
Oh yeah.
it's really unlocked things for so many people, and given that ability to just cross not only continents but also barriers and loads of other stuff, and even down to I played in a I played one of my first D&D games where I was a player. I've been a DM GM for most of the time, and one of the first games I played as a player, our DM was in Brazil, but it also happened that we were playing with some Twitch streamer. I don't even really know his name or what kind of shtick he was doing, but apparently he had a pretty big following, and he just never told us. He just rocked up and was like, "Yeah, I'm Nick." And we were like, "Oh,
That's
cool,
awesome.
Nick! That's great nice to meet you, Nick." Kind of thing. And a couple months later, one of the others in the group messaged me. It's like, "Have you seen what's going on? Like, Nick's got a fucking crazy following," and all this kind of stuff. So it is nice that people can use that anonymity in some ways, as well as also being able to just find that space. Because not everyone has a game shop, and not everyone has a bunch of friends nearby if you live out in the sticks and things like that.
Kidding.
Yeah.
No
the town that I grew up in
just one of those.
was 30 minutes from the nearest. Well, the next closest large town was a 20-minute drive. The closest city was at least a half an hour. The closest mall was an hour away. So I was not one of those kids that grew up with a local game store, and so I think it's kind of one of those things where I didn't even have access to a gaming store until I moved to the city that I currently live in. And even then, it's not really a gaming store. It's a comic book store that sells game stuff. So, gaming is not their focus. And the games that they do have is mainly Warhammer.
I tried that. Yeah. I don't recommend.
So
way too much money for not enough fun.
Yeah. So it was one of those things that it wasn't until I didn't even start playing TTRPGs until I'd been married for almost 2 years. So, or actually no, closer to 3 years at that point. So, it was weird to look back on it now. And even now, my parents still live in the same house that I grew up in, and I still don't think there's any game stores in that area. The closest one is probably at least a half an hour away. And I don't even know that there's one in that city. I'm just guessing. So
I'll open one. I don't like making money. Let's go.
Right? I know. But it's funny because now there's 3 within 20 minutes of where I live. So
It's that
That's
big
crazy.
renaissance that we're having at the moment.
I feel like there is, and I
with
feel like
Stranger Things and all that.
yeah,
It's
and I
crazy.
feel like COVID. A lot of people got into it during COVID, and it really
Yeah.
just became more mainstream. And yeah,
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Is that a real thing? Because we are enveloped by it. It's hard for me to step away and be like, so how much is D&D or just TTRPGs upticking in pop culture right now? It's hard to get that grasp of like the usual.
Dude, I
layperson.
was walking around like a town in the middle of nowhere, UK yesterday, and there was 6 Hellfire T-shirts, like just strolling around the streets, and I was like, okay, like it's getting. I think because of the D&D movie, because Stranger Things, because of Critical Role, because of their show on Amazon Prime, it's just really blown up in a way that is pretty crazy. Like I think, and the one thing I find, I'm not sure if you guys find this, the question I dread most when I meet someone new is, what do you do for a living? And having to tell people that I play D&D and do that stuff is always met with, oh my god, can you run a session for me? I've always wanted to play. And like I'm like, Jesus, like okay.
That's exciting, though, man.
I had to laugh.
It's,
I was on the
crazy.
phone. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, go for it. No,
I was just gonna say I was on the phone with my mom yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, we were having dinner with another older couple in their town, and and the woman was saying that her son plays this game. It's like something magic or magic something." And I said, "Magic the Gathering." And she's like, "I knew you'd know what it was." And she's like, "Is that anything like the game that you play with your friends?" And I was like, "Nope, not really."
Well, sorta, but no.
Yeah, I was like, "They both involve magic?"
Yeah.
And people who like to learn rules, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure whether or not like the golden age thing is it, like the extent to which it is accurate. I feel like it is. I mean, to really be able to say whether there's some kind of a golden age thing or not going on. Maybe there's like metrics or something that you can study. But I can tell you this: there has definitely been a palpable cultural shift in tabletop gaming that has to do with both accessibility and openness, that has invited a larger crop of people to feel welcome in the space, and also made people more willing to talk about it openly as a hobby. So like my coworkers know that I play regularly. In fact, they know that I've got podcasts and that I stream and stuff. They know that like this is my hobby. And they don't get it, but they're like, oh, okay. Like, it's not like one of those things where they're like really weird about it anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like 5 years ago, they would have felt a little weird about it. Now, I talk about it and people say, oh, I used to play that, or, oh, I haven't played that in a long time, or, oh yeah, I've got a weekly game. Or I'll find people like from my past who I would have never thought played it. And they'll, I'll bump into them now that people are meeting up again, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I got really into this over the pandemic because there was literally nothing else to do.
Yeah.
One of them happened to bump into the guy while he was blowing through town. He's a farmer. Okay, he's a farmer. He's got the trad wife, multi-kid, homesteader dream in Iowa. Okay, America through and through. And he's like, oh yeah, you do the podcasting and like streaming stuff. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I've got an Edge of the Empire game that I've been playing weekly since the pandemic started. It's really good. Have you played Edge of the Empire? I'm like, hell yeah, I fucking love Edge of the Empire. So I might roll down and play with him sometime as like a guest spot, because I do like Edge of the Empire a lot. But yeah, like that was the experience. It's like, this is way more normal now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Jason just pointed out in chat too that D&D 5e has sold more than all other editions combined.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow. That's so.
So I'm sure that there's some of that. I'm in a few groups on Facebook, like big, broad, like D&D meme groups and whatever, and there's a lot of people in those that I've seen even lately that are getting into it, likely because of Stranger Things. Like, oh hey, my family watched Stranger Things and we decided that we were going to try playing or something like that. I don't know where to start, or I bought the player's handbook. Now what? So I think whether or not, again, kind of like you were saying, Ben, I don't know if I would say golden age, but I do think that the shift to a lot of it being online and then also being in a lot of pop culture. Somebody else mentioned the shows like Community and Big Bang Theory and stuff like that. So some of that I think some of that has also kind of played into it. I know we would joke at my home group a couple years ago, like we had a player who never had watched The Big Bang Theory, and we were like, what's wrong with you? Like that kind of thing. I think that there's a lot more of it out there because it's just becoming more readily accessible. So,
do you know what's interesting? I think it's hilarious you mentioned the Big Bang Theory and almost like versus the Stranger Things situation, because Big Bang Theory and the way that they portrayed it, those gentlemen are seen as very nerdy, and they're meant to the comedy comes from them being peculiar to normal, from Penny's side of the coin, and things like that. And then you look at Stranger Things and you have, Eddie's character, being some rocker guitarist, that everyone's weak at the knees for. And you're it's pretty crazy that we're at this point where it's being made to be almost the cool thing now to be yeah, man, I play tabletop games, don't you? That's what everyone does. And it seems more consistently, and even some of my more I guess maybe toxic masculinity guys, who are maybe some of the ones that I've dealt with in the past that have thrown the shade or the shame about for that kind of stuff, are even now being oh, can that exact question, I just got the player's handbook, I want to run something for my girlfriend, and you're oh, sorry Chad, I didn't realize that this is where this was going tonight, but I'm happy to give you some light down this dark path you're about to go down. So yeah, it's really
playing
nice
pretend and rolling dice, man. It's the great equalizer.
Yeah, isn't it?
Although I think with Stranger Things, I mean, my wife and I are a little bit late to the game, so we're midway through season 3. But currently, what they have shown about through the D&D aspects of Stranger Things, I'm not sure they're highlighting certainly what I find is the essence, the reasons that I want to play. They're giving sort of a superficial, almost like a I don't know, like a cleansed marketing version of it that really isn't in my perception what it's all about.
Well, it's funny. I'm not convinced that the Duffer Brothers have ever played D&D.
They haven't.
I think they're aware of it as a cultural phenomenon from the 80s and included it for that reason, but I'm not convinced they've ever played it.
Given the juxtaposition between the basketball game and the D&D game when they kill Vecna, not when they like that, the way that's shot and set up, they definitely were intentionally trying to draw a parallel between the two activities. And that is massively uplifting. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they haven't, but they definitely had some people, some assistant director of photography. They were like, "Hey, you play, you nerd. How should we set this up?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I've got an idea for you," and they let him go with it. And all the best for him.
So it was actually really funny. So several weeks ago, I had B. Dave Walters on, who had at that point had just recently DM'd a game for the cast of Stranger Things, and he actually said, none of when he was asking, because they were all going to play the characters that they were playing in the series, and none of they were we went to Netflix, nobody knew anything about these characters. That if you ask any TTRPG player to tell you about their character, they'll be like, oh yeah, they're a level this, and they're a this class, and they have these spells. They can tell you all that stuff. Nobody knew anything about these characters, and it was because only a handful of the actual cast had ever actually played before. Most of them were we've never done this before.
Acting,
right?
Right.
Hey, I've definitely discovered my new job is going to be a D&D consultant on movies.
Yeah, where's that? Where's the applications for those jobs?
Yeah.
That's the one right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would be.
Kyellen can write all the music. Ben can help consult and play the music, and then yeah. Like
I'm looking forward. I want to know who the on the new D&D movie. I want to know who's going to get credited as the Forgotten Realms lore expert. I'm going to be looking for that credit.
They probably forgot to get one.
Probably, yeah.
All right, we have some other questions that have come in from chat, so I would like to shift along some of the questions. This next one specifically is geared for Ben. But the rest of it can
everyone. How dare you?
Well, the rest I was going to say, but everybody can jump in and answer this. This question comes from Alex Roke, and Alex would like to know, Ben, what's your favorite cake, and what do you like to snack on when playing in-person games?
Favorite cake: ice cream cake or one of those big cookies. Okay,
Ooh.
those are the go-tos, baby. All right, that's what I do. I'm not a cake man.
call.
Don't put that crap in front of me. It's like eating styrofoam. Okay.
I'll have your cake then.
Favorite snack at the table? Nothing. Water. I'm a professional.
You drink Angry Orchard, thank you.
That's not a snack. That's
Neither is water.
That's my medicine to get through the session.
That's product placement.
That's product placement.
When you said
35 of Lawful Great Adventure, sponsored by Angry Orchard.
It actually was. Poor Benjamin, last Saturday, I was at a Red Sox game. I sent him a picture of my Angry Orchard can. I said, thinking of everybody from Lawful Great Adventures.
Good. That's a good one. That's I like what you said there, because as when I'm a DM, I never snack. I can't, like, we take breaks because when we do family games and stuff like that, we typically play for like 5-6 hours, and we take like a break to have dinner, like in between. And everyone else eats, and I just can't eat. Like my like adrenaline and like all my emotional state is so high that I can never really like chow down on anything. But as a player, like, give me some, honey mustard pretzels or some like chocolate, and God, it's gonna be a problem. Like, I'm gonna be that guy crunching on the mic, being that guy. But yeah, I definitely don't. Same as you though, just water. And I don't even I don't have hot drinks or like alcohol or anything when I'm a DM either. It's always just like water. Consistently.
I have started drinking less when I DM. Definitely, I do like to have one about halfway through, just to kind of keep everything loose. But I've kind of stopped like pairing the two when I'm, especially when I'm running like an at the table game. It's just I gotta stay sharp. These people, they keep me on my toes.
100%.
They ask you for NPC names, man.
Now I throw it back at them. I don't know, what is that NPC's name? They punish me for it every time too. The dumbest names that come out of their mouth.
The last in-home game we had pizza, and because that was kind of a given. We also had a huge bag of Twizzlers that I stole from my teenager. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good move.
Yeah, well, she had
I'm
it
with
just...
you, Benjamin.
Whatever.
I'm pretty...
I was going to say, if I'm playing, like, on a streamed game, though, I won't snack.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of decorum, right? Especially if you're a guest on someone's game.
Yeah.
I guess in general, maybe even more so if it's your own game, there's a certain amount of decorum of like being engaged, showing the respect of, even if as you were saying, Gamer Mom, you might have two screens and you might have Facebook up, but you're not going to have the Facebook, like in a place that is indicating that you're not paying attention. It's gonna look like you are, even though you might not be. But and as far as eating is concerned, I'm pretty snack agnostic. Like whatever, I don't even typically bring the snacks.
Whatever you can reach.
Yeah, well, whatever's going, whatever's within arm's reach is up for grabs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only place I play in person anymore at a table is my friend Eric runs what he calls Mid-Realm, which is a rotating cast of approximately 30 people, all from the local area, most of which were taken from the local theater scene. So he has this like massive chart on the wall of who comes to what sessions and what group is playing when. I really don't know how he does it. But when I'm there, yeah, whatever's at the table. Like, somebody's brought something, that's fine. But yeah.
Not
Favorite cake?
picky at all.
Black Forest cake.
Oh,
Forest.
Ooh,
Wow.
good choice.
That is old school.
Yeah. Well, I have a weakness for European European bakeries. What can I say?
I love
feel
it.
that. Feel that for sure.
I didn't answer the
I'm
favorite
picturing
cake
your-
question. I think mine is Boston cream pie.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh,
Oh,
That is a good
mine's
one.
chocolate with vanilla, like buttercream.
There you
like
go.
That is
Nice.
that's nice and basic. And my snack is a cup of coffee when I'm playing. Nothing when I'm running though.
Yeah.
Gets you juiced up and ready to go.
Yeah, I've got one going right now.
So I'm picturing Kylan, this guy in town that's got 30 people. I'm picturing the board, and it's like almost like a mathematical conundrum to just make sure that like everyone is lined up all right. And I'm seeing what's the movie A Beautiful Mind, where he's got like all the formulas.
Kind of.
That's
he uses a scheduling program and he blasts it out to everybody and then assembles groups based on who can make which dates, right?
yeah.
And then he puts them together and there's the chart on the wall is the list of all the player characters. Almost everybody has at least one. Many people have more than one, depending on, so that you can participate in more sessions, right? Because if you're in one area of the world, you might have a different character in a different area of the world.
Like West Marches. Is
what's that?
like a West Marches style game?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of like a
Nice.
West Marches style game, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
I've never seen anybody pull it off like he does.
No,
so.
me, I've only ever it's at like a friendly local game store. It's just this concept, but I've never seen it in real life.
Yeah, he's doing it pretty much. It's pretty impressive.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Do you know, I don't want to out you like this, but I'm going to. When I was growing up, Tom was writing a graphic novel for a couple years, and the graphic novel has 3 different timelines going on in it.
Mhm.
And at one point, we had a spare room in our house, and there was freaking Post-it notes that would line like one wall and then go to the next wall and then like round the next wall, and there was like different Post-it notes of different colors so that bits were relating. And it looked like have you ever seen that clip where Christopher Nolan's trying to explain the plot of Inception with a chalkboard?
Oh, no.
And it's just pure comedy. It's literally pure comedy. And that's what our spare room was for a good year or two. It was hilarious.
I'm imagining the basement of a conspiracy theorist, and it's like, Tom,
Yeah,
you've gone too far this time. You're in too deep. You have to let it go. She's dead, Tom. She's dead.
All the
That
strings
is
connecting
exactly
different
it.
Post-it notes.
That is exactly it. My mother was saying that exactly.
Tracy would be like, "Uh-oh, this is going too far. This is much too far." But you know what? Here's the thing. Like, to justify,
I hear you at 2 in the morning, like cackling from downstairs.
I could not get like it out of my head and onto enough like digital screens. It was too big. It was too massive. So even if I was like trying to spreadsheet it, there was too much depth to the different timelines, and then too much width to the length of the timelines, and it couldn't. And I needed perspective, and having a wall just kind of could do that for me. I say that, and I feel as I'm saying it, it just sounds like I've.
It sounds like I just lost it.
Yeah, I'm justifying that little tilt into insanity for a second.
It was worth it though.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so another question that came up is how many different RPG systems have each of you played, and what is your favorite? But don't say D&D.
Oh, no.
I
So
know
I
what
think
Ben's answer
I
is.
already answered this. I think.
Oh, no.
But like I said, like I only know this number because I specifically did a count for reasons recently, and so I've played close to 40 different systems. I
Incredible.
don't have. I'm not really a system snob. like I kind of I love running my 5e game, and I don't have a favorite system, but I have favorite systems for specific things.
Oh yeah.
That's
And-
kind of
yeah.
the key.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I really like Savage Worlds for complex
Cool.
action resolution, like
Mm.
quick resolution for complex actions. I really like Swords Without Masters for like intentionality around like narrative and expression and storytelling. And they have this like really cool tones mechanic. I really like the one unique thing mechanic from 13th Age. I like the funnels in DCC, like yeah, like the links and like I have this. My ideal game is like this like I'm Frankenstein and I will
Nice.
create a monster of these different mechanics.
My answer is in many parts. Part one, my Trey, we should probably chat sometime because I am
Yes.
also I am also an indie darling. I
Love
actually basically don't play D&D at all anymore. Not even a little bit. The closest thing I do is Esper Genesis, which is a 5e
Right.
sci-fi hack. Then yeah, the other thing is like asking what my favorite system once you get out into the larger like non D&D realm. Like asking me what my favorite system is kind of like asking me what my favorite wrench is. It's like, well, whichever one
Exactly.
fits around whichever one fits around the bolt that I'm trying to open, right?
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
exactly.
That's
I
the perfect analogy.
I feel like
And
a
I'm going to
golfer.
steal that if you don't.
Oh yeah, go for it. I feel like a golfer sometimes. It's like, oh, I want to run this kind of game. Okay, so I'm going to look through my library and be like, which system would do that? But that being said, I have played just a mountain of lots and lots and lots of different games. The two that I'm really into right now are Orbital Blues and Quest. Very outspoken fan of those two. And then the other final factoid before I move it on is I actually played not D&D for years. I played online text-based, and it was a system that the dude that was running the channel had invented, and it was all bot-driven. So I played that for years. I didn't play D&D until after I'd already played like a bunch of other TTRPG stuff for like 3 years.
Interesting.
My friends were really into like writing our own TTRPGs. We were very young. We couldn't afford the books. We didn't really have access into the D&D world. It all seemed vague and obtuse. So we'd be like, oh, I want to play a story where we're like surviving in a post-apocalyptic wasteland and we want base building mechanics. And then one of us would go out and be like, okay, here's how this is all going to work, and here's going to be the resolution mechanic. We weren't using terms like that, but like, here's how we do it. And then we would write the game, and then we would play that for like 3 weeks, and then we would get bored of that and then go find another one. So I have always loved the vast rainbow of options that you get from the independent world and the non D&D spaces and stuff. So, yeah.
Kick-ass answer. I know on our end, so we've predominantly played Dungeons and Dragons. However, I've bridged into a few other systems. I'll say outright as a dyslexic, and as I'm our like house dungeon master, games master, I often find for me learning new rules is a fucking pain in my ass, and you know, can cause big crossing of wires at times. But I played a little bit of The Witcher system, which I really enjoyed. I'm hopefully going to be getting the One Ring system that is for Tolkien stuff. I'm looking forward to playing some of that. And done a couple of like little like one-page like TTRPG stuff, like the Honey Bear Heist, which was
Nice.
like a great fun when we did that. We did that with family at Christmas and things like that, and just little bits and bobs here and there. But I really do enjoy the like you said, you know, finding the right thing for the moment. And I think, you know, I've heard things like Dark Matter are meant to be amazing, and you know, there's other really amazing systems out there that are really great, and I would love to try out. Just basically, once I put the nail in the coffin with the world that I'm working on, then I'm happy to move on. I need to really finish where I'm at with D&D before I start cultivating my next space. But Mutants and Masterminds is another one that we've heard a lot about that people talk about a lot and say is really, really good and really interesting for like deep character development. So that's another one we've looked at and kind of gotten some information on. But that's about it for us. You're a D&D guy.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm intrigued by, and I think because I'm older and because I'm just so busy, just having 5 or 6 characters for the different streams that we're on in D&D is a handful at this point. Just having all of that, it's hard for me to master any one of them, and so I'm very much into roleplay more so than combat. The roleplay is what I really, really like, and so when I hear what you guys are talking about, it really just whets my appetite about trying some new, little bit more roleplay heavy games. We also created a game that's it is a TTRPG, but it's around mixed martial arts. So we will almost go into a martial arts competition and roll dice for it. So we have done that quite a bit as well. But I am mostly D&D, and I feel like it's enough at this point, but I also feel like I want to venture into a lot more role play.
You want to get out of the rules, the crunchy.
Yeah,
you don't like the crunchy.
Yeah.
I'll give you this. I'm going to hand you a gift. This is for you, because I love you.
We love you too.
So if you Orbital Blues. All right, this is why I love Orbital Blues, and it's because of the troubles system. And this is so every character has a trouble. And basically, it's just the weight on their shoulders that is holding them down, right? And it is simultaneously the chief roleplay prompt that you use for rounding out your character, and also it's the advancement mechanic to actually leveling up the character. So basically, like the trouble will have like maybe you're a good example is on the run trouble, which is basically like you have run afoul of some bad people and you are now fleeing them, and it'll have a description like. It'll have prompt questions. It'll ask you, okay, why, what did you do? Why are they chasing you? Who are they? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all very good. Helps you flesh out your backstory. And then it'll have 3 questions, or rather, it'll have 3 prompts, and it'll say, take a blues when you think you see trouble where there isn't any. Take a blues where your suspicions are confirmed, and take a blues when you escape a scary situation. And blues simultaneously is how you like unlock your most powerful narrative ability, which is when you kind of get your big spotlight moment. When you reach maximum blues, which is like 8, then you have a big spotlight moment. That's also once you resolve that, that's when you level up.
Oh, crazy!
So, yeah,
it's so cool.
I love it. It's great. And here's the cool thing about it: you could take it, read through the book, say, I don't want to learn all these rules. It's not a very hard book. It's very simple. But if you're like, I want to keep playing D&D, you could take it and just snip like the 3 pages of troubles, and then just paste them into your D&D book.
That's
and just
literally what I do.
You could just lift it whole cloth. You could it ports over whole cloth, no problem.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
great system. Love your gift. Thank you.
You know what I played recently that I just like fell in love with, and I'm like so keen to run is The Expanse.
I've heard a lot of people say good things about that.
It's one of the, if you like the show, it's one of these games. Well, I mean, I think the story is that like the books actually came from the game and the show came from the books, so it kind of makes sense that there's not a lot of games that you feel like sort of get their subject matter when it's like an established IP, but like this game like gets The Expanse, like, and it's just there's this incredible level of verisimilitude that like I'm just obsessed with. Like I want so badly to try my hand at running it. I think it's gonna be awesome.
I know we're coming up on the break, so I'm going to make this quick. Guys, I've played way too many games. And I own books for way too many that I have never gotten an opportunity to play, because trying to convince a bunch of teenagers to play anything other than D&D, impossible. Trying to convince a bunch of adults to play anything other than something they already know, not as impossible, but still pretty close.
Pretty hard.
So I saw a chat talk about Fate. I ran Fate with my co-conspirators as part of Tumble Die Games very early on. We played in the Android universe, and I don't know if you are aware of Android, if anybody's aware of Netrunner or Android, but we actually used Fate to successfully create and evoke the Android universe, and still one of my favorite memories. Savage Worlds, also very cool, love it. Recently, very much in love with Orbital Blues. I just think it's amazing. Having been on the Telluride podcast as a plug, as a cast member over the last year, and just the engine of that, because the mechanics are so light in that game, and it's all driven by the troubles. It's just 100% roleplay. Like there's almost no mechanics involved. When something comes up, you roll 2d6 and you hope you get 8, and that's basically it. Like, it's just awesome. If you really want to just focus roleplay, I can't think of something better on the market right now.
The setting is mad depressing too.
Oh, it's super depressing. Like it's very Cowboy Bebop, Firefly, downward spiral into awfulness. It's great. For my group who likes things slightly more crunchy, we finally ran dry on Pathfinder and just can't do it anymore. So I'm running Swyhander for them, and I really, really like it. It's got such a different vibe. It's got more rules, but because combat is deadly, not fun, they don't do it very much, it turns out. Because when you can get cleaved in half in one attack, it turns out that they'd rather talk about stuff. So that's been going really well so far, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. So that's my short version.
Nice. So quickly, I will answer the question and then we'll go to break. So I also have played a lot of games, because I've basically spent all of the last couple of years of the pandemic learning new systems. So, anytime somebody's like, hey, we're going to play this, I'm like, I want in. And so that's become kind of my thing. And then, systems that I really like. So this one I haven't actually played yet, but it's prompted me enough because I am so fascinated by the whole thing that I'm actually going to run it, which anybody who has watched the stream a bunch of times knows I don't run games. 10 Candles. I am so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I desperately want to play 10 Candles.
I got to meet the creator of it at PAX East this year and had a very lengthy conversation. Promptly went back to my hotel room, read the book cover to cover, and was like, I need to run this game. And then,
it's so good.
Yeah, a couple of friends of mine that I was staying with for PAX, well, one that I was staying with for PAX and another one who lives in the area, we were all hanging out that night, and they both like have played D&D, but they don't play regularly. They took a look at the book and they were like, yeah, we'll play it with you. And I was like, sweet. So I'm actually going to run it for one of their birthdays in October. So,
amazing.
Yeah. And I keep saying that because now everybody can hold me accountable. So I have to come back like at the beginning of November and be like, so I DM'd a game and here's what happened. Yeah. So
across
anyway.
the curtain, it's it's kind of like a drug.
I know.
You try it once,
You'll never come back, Luna.
I know. I'm pretty sure that this is like going to be a one-time thing, but
I don't know. You'll tell yourself you're doing it because no one else will, and then 2 months later you're like,
no, that's not true. I prefer playing. My better half prefers DMing. So between the two, we're all set.
I know.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's a classic tale. You start, you got a partner. Oh yeah, I prefer DMing, but maybe you do this once, just for fun. You try that one, and then you have a good time. So you get another table together, maybe online, and then all of a sudden it's a year and a half later, and you wake up in a gutter covered in Delta Green books, and.
And on that note, we're gonna pause for a break. We are gonna take a quick break so everybody can get up, stretch their legs, #FreeTheP, and all of that good stuff. And we will be back in just a few minutes. And if you haven't had a chance to drop your question into chat, please feel free to do that, and we will get to it after the break. If you do have a question somewhere in the queue and we haven't answered it yet, we will be getting to that as soon as we come back. And there is one that's in the queue that I am super excited about. So, yeah. So we'll see you in just a few minutes.
Okay, this is the hardest part of any role-playing game. Who wants to be the dungeon master?
I do. Me.
Everyone?
We could aid a desperate town in their hunt for a savage beast.
Or sail to a hidden isle full of talking turtles.
I love turtles.
Or tracking down a band of pirates to save your best friend.
5 DMs, 5 great ideas. I guess we'll have to play them all. Set sail with us for a podcast adventure full of music, laughter, and friendship on Dice Populi. Listen to these stories and more at dicepopuli.com.
All right, so you all missed out on some really great conversation during the break, and we're just going to keep it all to ourselves because that's how we roll.
What if we kissed in the Tales from the Tavern green room?
It might have happened. Nobody will know.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we're gonna dive back in with some questions that we got before the break. This one, I foresee this bringing up a lot of conversation. And I'm kind of there's 2 questions that I'm really excited about. So I foresee this one bringing up a lot of conversation, so I think it's great. Ron Blessing asked, for the women, my wife is a role player, but she hates game stores because she feels like she's treated like an alien when she walks in by the patrons and some of the employees. What can male-centric groups and organizations do to make you feel more comfortable?
Say that Ron Blessing and his wife are like probably some of the most incredible people like in the world. So for that, just a little caveat. If you don't mind, I'd like to take
Go
a
ahead.
stab at this. First of all, we're not a monolith. So my answer is probably not going to be the same as other women of color. But for me, what makes me feel included at a table, one is actively wanting to play with me is a really, like, it's really encouraging. It's really nice. And I like feeling like people want to play with me. So that's one thing. The other thing is that have women NPCs. Have women NPCs that are not like damsel in distresses, especially. Like, have women NPCs as captain of the guards. Have them as like bakers, not the baker's wife. Have them as the mayor of the town. Have them in positions of authority. And where possible, have women of color. That's a really meaningful thing to me. And to make it easy to come up with non-traditionally Western European names, what I like to do, what's like super easy to do, look up famous Nigerian actresses from the 1990s, and then mix and match first and last names. Famous Korean actresses from the 1980s, and then mix and match last names. And first and last names. And it's like a really easy way to get NPC names.
There you go, Ben. NPC names for you.
NPC names.
I just make my table do it.
or that. Or you could use Ben's way. So there's that. The third thing is have the option to have your players be non-male. So either femme or femme presenting or trans or binary, but non-cis male. And I find that like this is not really an issue unless you're at like a convention game with pre-gens. Sometimes you don't have anything except men, and like women notice that kind of stuff. So like we'll notice when you have 5 pre-gens and none of them are anything except men. So if you're able to like mix up your roster of player pre-gens, like that's a really big thing. The fourth thing is it's difficult, but I would say arguably one of the most important things. Identify your implicit biases. Or find ways to mitigate them. For example, when I'm playing Savage Worlds, generally like the sheriffs or GMs or like marshals or whatever you call them, I forget, but like basically the person running the game, generally they're like, oh, I'll give bennies out, and bennies are like in-game currency you can use to reroll or to like soak up damage, and like they're basically like above the table affect the game kind of currency. And generally they're awarded to players who like will make the DM laugh, or like they do something cool in RP, or like it's like inspiration in D&D, or like luck in some other games. They're all kind of similar. I don't get a lot of bennies. I am just as funny as the other dudes at the table. I'm just as engaged as the other dudes at the table. I'm just as invested as the other dudes at the table, but I just don't give, and there's no malice associated with it. It just doesn't happen. For some reason, it doesn't occur to them to give me a Benny. So my recommendation here is to tie those awards to story beats rather than player performance. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to kind of identify that in yourself and try to kind of work through that. But until you're able to do that piece, I would say tie it to story beats. After everybody has gone through a scene together, be like, that was really great, everyone gets Benny, as an example. So those are my 4 things.
So I really badly want to tangent off of what you just said without stepping on the actual question. So can we circle back to specifically what you said later after the question is done, related to table rewards and how to be more fair with them? Because I have opinions.
I would love to hear what they are. I would love to hear what they are.
Opinions with a capital opinion. So.
Oh yeah.
So I agree with pretty much everything that you just said. I think that specifically the question referenced like game stores and whatnot, and so I think what I would say, so I mentioned earlier tonight that I had just stopped into a new game store, and a couple of people that like actually know me or people that are friends with me on Facebook saw me post about this, and I'm not somebody that typically is like, everybody has to go check out the store. Like that's just not how I typically roll. But one of the things that really stuck out was I walked in and I was greeted just like any other customer, you know, like, is there something special you're looking for? Is there, you know, and I think for me, like that's the key right there, is treat me just like any other customer, you know, like that's all it is. You know, if you're gonna, if I walked in at the same time as, you know, 3 other guys, and you ask them all, is there anything specific you're looking for? Can I help you find something? You know, whatever, you're asking them about the weather, you're asking them about anything, like, have the same conversation with me when I walk in the door. Like, that's I think how you start to make women feel more like they can be part of that space. And then I think a lot of the stuff that you just brought up, you know, like having women NPCs, having women of color NPCs, having, you know, people who are femme presenting, you know, they, them pronoun, you know, all of that stuff. I think that's how you get to that. I think that's how you start showing that you want to, you know, make more people feel included in that space. I feel like this is such a huge topic. You know, I was lucky in that when I got into TTRPGs, I was brought into it by someone who explicitly said, like, yes, we'd like to have you join our table. There was already another woman playing at the table, so it wasn't like I was the only one there. But I do think that when I first started getting into the public TTRPG space, when I first started getting into streaming, like, we actually had to have a conversation around, when I say we, me, and the other people on my stream, we actually had to have a conversation around my safety on the internet and how people might respond to me being the only woman on a stream, or, things like that. Yup, I got unsolicited dick pics in the first few weeks of that stream, several of them, in fact. and so we had to have conversations around that, and and all of that stuff. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. If you're thinking about doing that, not just to me but to anybody, don't. It's a bad idea. We will show other people. That's just what we do.
To laugh about them, in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah.
I really like the person I saw who says that she hunts down their mothers and then sends it to their mothers.
Right? Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. So, yeah, Nekla the Druid, who also is a woman, for anyone who doesn't know Nekla, will send one back.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's just, it's interesting that it's funny because when I came into the space, it never even dawned on me that was a conversation that needed to be had. So I'm glad that somebody else did realize that we needed to have that conversation. And yep, it was exceptionally awkward because this was a group of people that I didn't really know, Granted, we became pretty good friends during the course of the stream, but don't do that. Like, if you want a woman to feel welcome in the space, don't do that.
And
it is that simple.
Specifically, like talking about the game store thing, one of the things that I have seen is it has a lot to do with the culture around the whole store in general, right? Because there are other hobbies that often coincide with RPGs, right? There's the Warhammer type, and there's the Magic the Gathering things, and the Digimon cards, and the whatever, right? So you've got the card games, you've got the tabletop war games, and you got the RPGs. And when they try to coexist, I don't know. I haven't really seen a lot of luck, because the competitive nature of the other games attracts a type of person that tends to be, I don't know, toxic, to put it simply. And those aren't the people who are going to... I really feel like to make a game store culture welcoming, you have to try. It has to be the goal, right? Because you've got to foster the people who are going to do the things that you're talking about, right? Yeah. And you can't just let anyone come in, because when the problem people start doing it, if you just let them do it, then you have a problem and people leave, right?
Right.
So you have to have, I don't know, a game coordinator who makes sure that toxic shit isn't happening, because otherwise it will.
Absolutely right. Like, you can't just stop at agreeing that intellectually, yes, inclusivity is important.
Right.
Like,
it has to be a thing.
You kind of have to do more than that.
And you kind of have to risk the business a little bit. Like, you have to take risks. Like, it's dangerous and it's uncomfortable. It's hard. I have a friend. Okay, I am fortunate that there is a game store in my town that is exceptionally well run and extremely inclusive. Whenever I go in there, it's a variety of people, and that is specifically because a friend of mine who I happened to go to high school with came in and bought it after living in California for a while and wanted to live a simpler life here in sweet little old Iowa. And so he made it a goal to make it an inclusive store, because he bought it from some real shitheads. And they had been terrible for a very long time, and the place was just famous for being just a den of just the worst grogs ever. And he had to kick some of them out. Like
Yeah.
it was to the point. Well, the thing that he realized is that like there's like a nucleus of really, really awful toxic people, and then there's kind of the orbiters that
Right.
still want to be there and are just participating in the culture. And because the toxic people are louder, they set the culture. So what he identified the toxic people, and then he just banned them for life. He just got rid of them.
Nice.
And it was
That's
huge risk.
awesome.
And there was backlash, and there were angry people, and there were problems. And he's a strong man, and he got through to the other side. And then sure enough, once the worst elements had been chased away, more people began to come in and test it out.
Yep.
Found that it was a little bit better, and then that cultural input from women and people of color relaxed the whole thing. And some of those people that had been playing along with that toxic culture relaxed into it, and they're like, "Hey, I'm just here to play Warhammer. Like, I was just playing along, and now it's a different thing." But it changed the culture, and that's
That's what you have to do.
I think like any business, and I say this as somebody who works for an organization that's currently going through a lot of big DEI work.
Ours too.
And I think in order to be that type of community that is welcoming to women, marginalized communities, things like that, you have to, it's a daily, hourly, by the minute thing. You have to be conscious of it at all times. And it's not about being woke. It's not about being, I hate that word. I hate saying that things are woke. Yeah. But that's my own little segue. It's not about any of that. It's just about treating people like people.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
I feel like people worry that doing that is going to make the things you love unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And it isn't. It doesn't do that. It invites people who've never had a chance to participate in the things you love, participate in the things you love.
Yeah.
Like, how is that a bad thing?
As was
How can that
foretold,
possibly be a bad thing?
as was foretold in chat, who I know happens to play with Ben, says it's an open, well-lit, and welcoming space in our friendly local game store. It's funny, too, like, a store being well-lit is really important, and not just it's like super important, and not just because you can see stuff better, but like for safety. It's kind of a joke, but it's not. For example, when I go out to dinner, I don't sit with my back to the door. It's a safety thing for me. It was something that I was taught a long time ago.
Are you in the mob?
And but I won't sit with my back to the door of the restaurant. It makes me super uncomfortable. I don't like having people like feeling like somebody could come in behind me and I wouldn't be aware of it. Yeah. And so that's why, like, when I'm in a store, and this is, again, I think just part of, being a woman, you grow up sort of learning to look for this stuff. I know where my nearest exit is. And so when a store is really well lit and well laid out and that sort of thing, that can help not just in the aspect of merchandising and people being able to find what they need, but in how safe people feel in that space.
Sure. I was gonna say, I think the a lot of what Trey said is stuff that I think is really, really important for when you're doing, in game. Both representation and inclusivity and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to touch upon, just safety tools and things like that, because I know, the first game I ever ran had two women, girls, however you want to put it, in my game, and I didn't know about Session Zeros. I didn't know about creating a right, safety environment, because no one explicitly explained that to me. And, it doesn't have a section of that in the player's handbook. There's not much about that, unless you, kind of stumble into it. And I know that for me, it's been a big part of now making sure that, the game space, and especially because, like Trey said and whatnot, a lot of everything is online. And, a big part of that is, that virtual space feeling, like you said, well lit, safe, that kind of thing as well. Knowing that, people at the table understand what everyone's comfortable with, that we're going to work, in harmony, and, understand that if lines are crossed, how we're going to deal with that as a group, and how, things are going to go down. And, I think a big part of that is hitting those very early, conversations with players and DMs. And then I think actually a bigger thing that I found is one of the most beneficial things is checking in, periodically as you go, and making sure that everything is still hunky-dory, that everyone is still happy with how things are going, and how things are being played. And, like you said, that you are feeling like there's the correct amount of representation of, women of color and whatnot as NPCs, feeling that, you are safe to, my mother plays a male character in a lot of our games, and she loves playing a male character, and it's one of her favorite things, feeling safe enough to step into that role and not be, judged and kick some ass and take some names, in a safe space. And I think that for me was a big learning point in my DM career, was finding my version of Session Zero as well, to really support the people at my table and give them the space to. Honestly, I've run a lot of games for new people, so it's often teaching people, and having I had a girl who I used to work with come in and play in one of my games, and she would be like, can I say this? Like, very tentative about almost everything. And I would sit down with her and be like, Ree, you're good. Just you tell him to shut up, and you dive in with what you want to say. It's all good. Just do what you need to do. And she's now an amazing player at the table, who's by far one of the most creative and outspoken at the table. And I think you need to be able to make sure that people are comfortable in that space. And I love everything that everyone's said here so far. And I just wanted to add that Session Zero safety tools stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
I think Session Zero safety tools super important. I love that you mentioned that. I also really think that what you said about that sort of active listening and the social awareness of hey, there might be a woman or someone new to the game, really anyone new to the game, but specifically women, because we're very used to being talked over. But if you see that, give that person an opportunity as the GM. I think it's okay to pull rank in that moment and say, oh, hey, Luna, you had something to say, or so and so, you had Sarah, you had something to, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's okay to sort of call that out. So that's a good point.
Sometimes you have to be the teacher and call on the quiet kid.
Absolutely. And I totally interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
So
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is sometimes if these things are important to us, then we have to be relentless in not accepting anything less than that. And you can be at a table where you might feel there's an element of that happening, and if you don't speak up boldly and bravely, then you can be an accomplice to whatever's happening at that table. So, and also, this is what I will say as well. If you do challenge it, it tends to go away, because whoever is in that sort of that toxic space, I'm making a generalization right now, but they will sense when it's not tolerated. And then they'll have their toxicity in wherever it is tolerated. But if it's not tolerated at my table or my store, then those people will skulk out to somewhere where they can behave the way they want to behave. But I think you have to be relentless about challenging it. We have to take responsibility. And I have to say, there have been times where something has happened at a table where I've let it pass. And in reflection, I've been like, you know what, I should have called on that. I should have called that.
Yep.
Yeah. And those are the moments where, if you don't let it pass, if you can stand up, figuratively, and say, no, we can't do that here. That's not acceptable. Whether it's D&D or whatever, someone's language or someone's whatever, in any kind of social situation, you tend to have people gravitate to you that understand your own ground rules and what you will and won't accept. And I think we all have to take responsibility of keeping, our space clean, and not allowing stuff to creep in.
I wanted to go back to something that Bodhi said real quick, and that was, like having the periodic check-ins, even though you've done a session 0, doing periodic check-ins. Yeah. I had a guest on one time who even said, like, at the start of every session, they would just do a quick, like, how's everybody doing this week? Because somebody may have had a really crappy day at work. Somebody may have had something really awful happen. Somebody may just not, like, they want to be here, they want to be around their friends, but they just don't have, for whatever reason, the energy to, like, be super actively participatory. And that can help everybody sort of gauge, like, if someone's GMing a game and your normally very talkative player is very quiet tonight, you don't think that there's an issue with the game or something like that. Like, it can help sort of eliminate some of those eliminate some of those, like, sort of internal, like, is there something wrong? Like, did I do something with the game? Is there something, whatever. It could just gives everybody a chance to be on the same page.
I would even build on that by saying, even, like, maybe not even at the beginning of sessions, even, like, in break, if you have a big story moment coming up, like I know I had recently, one of my players had, like, a meeting with their god that I knew was not going to go well and was going to be a big, like, shaking character moment for them. So before that moment, in our break, I was like, hey, we're moving into this territory. How you feeling today? Are we good to go there today? Because I know that, we're not always good to go there, and I'm not always good to go into those areas as well and stuff. So I fully agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I think you're dead on with that.
I check in. I try to check in before sessions every time and have for a long time. Specifically, I mean, it's nice to get a gauge for the players. Emily will probably know that she's watching, but I also need to get a gauge for how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Because my life is really my life is really busy and chaotic, and so kind of getting the wheels out of the mud is really, really nice. But I think anyone that's played with me will know I'm pretty transparent too. So, like, you're talking about, like, there's going to be this thing and they're going to talk to their god and it's not going to go that well. I might even tell the player that in advance. I might even straight up tell them, like we're pulling aside, we're on the break. I'm going to be like, hey, I just need you to know I have it in my head that this scene is actually going to go very poorly. No, seriously, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
I'll do that. Well, and then it's okay. Like, they can have the spoiler. They're the one in the scene. They're the star. Exactly. They got the spotlight. Right. But then the rest of the table can be like, what?
Yeah, and that person is still safe. Like, that's exactly it. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, for real.
Ben, tell us about your opinions with a capital opinion.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for segueing. Oh my God, Luna, I love you. So anyway, so, like, inspiration points or any sorts of points like that where you just sort of divvy them out based on, like, I don't know, good role play or whatever. I'm not a huge fan of that in practice, because what is worth an inspiration point is very subjective DM to DM, and so now the players have to play this weird, like, meta game where they can't play the way they want to play. They have to play the way the DM wants them to play.
That's an interesting insight.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a little bit of that, right? Because the DM really does shape kind of how the narrative is going to go. But like, anytime you can remove some of that is always a good thing. Anyone that's talked to me about, like, DM theory stuff, I'm a big player agency boy. So systematizing the way you divvy up AP or whatever, inspiration or whatever, I think is a very, very good thing to do. Once again, Orbital Blues, the trouble system, very specific prompts for when you get a blues. They are in black and white, and they say, when this happens, you get a blues. When this happens, you get a blues. And then any other time, usually if it's, like, kind of a murky water, there's a roll for it. But the player, since they've got these prompts, feels more comfortable, since it's a diehard mechanic, going for it. So I'm I'm actually transitioning Lawful Great Adventures over to Quest right now. We're gonna start playing Quest from here on out. I'm like you. We're done with Pathfinder. It was a lot. Some people think the decision was controversial. Some not. But what I've done is I wanted to have those prompts, because in Quest you're supposed to the guide is supposed to divvy out adventure points, and adventure points are really important. They're not just like you get a reroll; they're your mana pool. Like they're how you access your abilities. You have to be divvying them out constantly. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel comfortable giving people the amount of adventure points that they need to get through stuff. So what I've done, and Emily, if you're still watching, you need to sit down and do these, or email me and we'll work on it together. So what I did was I asked them to come up with 3 prompts for their character that would get them an adventure point. One of them is like something good your character does, like something that is good about your character, something that's maybe not so good about your character. So like a flaw. If you indulge in a flaw, you'll get an adventure point, and then something that's just sort of fun and frivolous about your character. And whenever you do that, you get an adventure point.
Yeah.
And that way, I'm not the one making that decision there. The reason it's really important is there are people that are going to have cultural differences at your table. Yes, that's obvious. You're going to have implicit biases, and that helps you remove those. But there are also people that just have very different play styles. There are people that
That's very true.
And I want my wallflowers to have fun too. I want them to just hang out, and if they want to sit with dice and describe their actions when they get prompted, that's fine. I want them to get AP so they can feel effective and have fun, right?
That's super insightful, Benjamin. Like I really, really like that approach. I'm obviously, like you know this about me now, but I am a big fan of trying to remove that bias wherever possible. And I really feel like mechanizing that above the table currency is the best and easiest. That's the easiest way to do that for me, because 1, it removes those biases. 2, it makes it predictive, and it makes it something that you can kind of work towards in game, and not sort of above the table trying to get the GM to like laugh at your jokes or like whatever. And you can play the way you want to play. But I mean, you're right. Like then you have to be much more mindful about sort of actually actively handing them out as a GM. And I like that idea. So I'm kind of with you. I had never really considered the way you put it. So I really like that, and I'm going to be percolating on that for a bit.
Yeah. Let her ride. Absolutely.
I had someone tell me something similar recently, and they use a system that, again, still is somewhere between, I think, what Benjamin said and, the standard, giving out inspiration for good roleplay stuff. They basically, the system that they use is they give every player at their table 1 inspiration to give out each session, and they have to give the inspiration they have to have given it out by the end of the session. So all the players then are giving each other inspiration and passing it back and forth, and it becomes, he said in his game, it becomes very fun, and when it works well, it becomes really great. And
I love that.
Love that.
It's I was like, that's a really sick way to do it, because it means that and moments that, I find greater. I love heavy description. I love creative thinking. I love a good problem solve. I love, that kind of stuff. So as a GM, I might give it for certain reasons, but also, there's things like, I know my partner is like, hates roleplay, but is like the most amazing logical thinker in the whole world. And she would be giving people for like, oh, you made a really good decision to walk that way instead of that way. Inspiration for you, kind of thing. And so I think that's a really, really great way to do it. Pass it to your players and allow them to, support each other and creating that group vibe.
I'll give you an inspiration if you let my villain finish his monologue. God damn it.
Okay, well, that's a really great segue into the very last question we're going to have time for. This one came in from Emily. She stole it from Ben.
No, we're not. Oh my God, Emily, I love you.
60-second villain monologue. Go.
Oh, this is
I'm
great.
not prepared for this question.
No, me either.
No one ever is, and Ben always asks it.
God damn it, Ben.
So is in we must perform one, we must describe our best 60 seconds, or what's the
as a general rule, the way that it's worked is you have to give a 60-second villain monologue.
Okay. Jesus. Wow. The room's gone quiet.
I think I already have one in the pot.
Go for it, Ben.
I have a villain monologue for every day of the week.
Go
I am
for it,
ready
Ben.
all day long.
Oh, I see. You're still fighting, aren't you? That's because you're not paying attention. We're not really different, you and I. We both want the same things, don't we? A world with peace, free from suffering. Your way. The way of your kings. That is the way of good men rooting out evil men, and always conveniently finding it, whether it's hiding there or not. My way, the true way, is a lasting end to the war between good and evil. It's the end of struggle, the end of pain, the end of vicious thought and violence. And when the work is done, there will be no gods and kings. Only us.
Dun dun dun.
So,
What the
do we
hell?
just end the show there? I think?
Yeah,
I think that was the end right there.
Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
gonna be very lame after that.
Right? Like, how do you follow that?
Okay, I'm
Well,
gonna
yeah.
go, but I'm just saying that I am gonna do not great to allow everybody else to see better. So
There's no passing on
I am
inspiration. Thank you.
I am
Thank you for that.
protecting you all from Benjamin. That's what's happening here. Throwing myself in the grenade.
Thank you for taking that bullet. I appreciate it.
Okay. I am tired of you. You have displeased the silent emperor for the last time. Perhaps I will tell the three demons who cannot forget your name that you should be flayed and your skin should be used to bind their books of sin. But maybe that's too good for you. Maybe we'll boil you in rose water and drink the wine. Why don't we see how this goes? Not 60 seconds.
The demons that can't forget your
Amazing.
name?
That was awesome.
That was great.
That was kick ass.
What a great detail. Wow.
Dude, you guys gotta play Swords of Masters, I'm telling you.
Okay, I'll go.
All right.
I'll step in here. Just to beg, because I want to do a character from my world. I want to give a little something from our world. So here, I'll let you guys decide. Do you want the Dark Goddess? Do you want the Joker Pirate King, or do you want the Mafia Don? Which would you guys like tonight?
Joker Pirate King.
Joker Pirate King. Okay.
Yeah.
Pirate King.
Let's go for
Joker
it.
Pirate King. Let's go.
All right, you lot. It's a pleasure to see you all here, and nonetheless here in my throne room. And look at you all standing shackled. Just beautiful, aren't you all? Well, you know what? I like to play a game. I love a game, so let's play a game. I'm gonna go round. I'm gonna guess a little thing about you, and if I'm right, you can nod. But don't talk, because I don't like people who talk. That shit pisses me off, okay? Right, so here we go. You, my darling, I have the feeling that you like to frolic in amongst the daisies in your spare time. Is that right? It is. Well, that's just wonderful. I thought it might be. I got that sense from you. Okay, moving on. You. Now, I know what you've done. And let me just tell you now, I fucking love it. I think that dark side of you should be embraced a lot more. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yes, you do. Exactly. So, we come to our final guest tonight. And I know this one I know by just looking at you, your scars. You've seen things, and you've done things, I'm sure. Whether they're good, whether they're bad. Not sure that's for me to know. But I'll tell you this, I can tell that the reason you bite your lip when you're nervous is because of how Daddy used to treat you, isn't that right? Well, now that you're here on my island, welcome to the Zodiac Freebooters. Yo ho, me hearties, and fuck off.
No.
I love that. That was so good.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'll go next just because I don't want to close the show. I'll leave.
Oh, thanks.
I'll leave that to Kyle. All right, bear with me. Okay. So, I look at you and I feel like you're judging me. And everyone can judge. But what are we judging really? The fact that I speak my mind? The fact that I do what I please? The fact that I don't follow the trends? Or the expectations? Or the rules? Is that to be judged? Or is that to be honored? And so if I feel like coming toward you and gouging your eyes out, because in my heart it's the right thing to do, I hope you at least understand and respect that I'm following my heart and my passion. So come here, keep those hands bound, and I'll make it as quick as possible.
Killer.
Nice.
Killer.
So good.
That was
my
a great
God.
question,
Oh,
first of all.
wow.
This is so great.
Okay. All right.
Bring us home.
I have
I-
never seen Kai roleplay Dark ever.
Okay. So, yeah. So I'm going to take a slightly different tack because what I'm going to do is I'm going to resurrect my interpretation of Tarbaffin the Lich from the Tyrant's Grasp AP that we started and then I took severe liberties with. But when my players eventually encountered him at his headquarters, the ancient Tower of Gallowspire, they entered they entered the tower to hear, "Sup, dickwads? Welcome to Gallowspire. Everybody come in, take a number, get in line, find a spot, settle down, and we'll call you up when we need you." So eventually, they found their way to the stairs and then fell deep into a cage. And beneath the Tower of Gallowspire, where there was absolutely no escape, Tarbaffin came to speak to them. I know all of you have a lot of questions, and quite frankly, I'm already sick of all your questions, so shut up. The important part about all this here is that you are just the dumbest sacks of meat that I have ever had the opportunity to come across. I gave you every opportunity to see through every one of my traps, and what did you do? You walked straight in the front door. You walked straight to the stairway. I didn't even see one of you check for traps, and yes, I was watching you check for traps. What were you thinking? I am the smartest being in the multiverse. Did you really expect that you were going to get away with this? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to walk away, and I'm going to let all of you turn into the same skeletons as those guys over there. Because those guys, they're the last ones who tried this. Peace.
Oh, it's so good.
I definitely have had a headmaster say something very similar to
I love
that to
that.
me in
I
my
love
time
that.
in school, for sure.
Oh, goodness.
Also, all of that was true. They really didn't check for traps.
That's amazing.
Like, I can't. I hope they're
man.
watching because they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah. You should
A
be.
villain who is sick of the adventuring party's hubris. I'm into it.
Oh my gosh. I don't do villains because I don't DM ever. So So if you want to see any of my villain monologues, you'll just have to check out my TikTok.
Oh.
So yeah, I've been doing some voice acting challenges on TikTok. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I have any actual villain ones on there, but I'm working on them. So anyway. Yeah. So we are out of time. We have hit 10 o'clock Eastern time, so we are going to need to wrap it up for the evening. However, before we do that, I would like to just go around again and have everyone remind us of who you are and what you do and where people can find you on the internet. We're going to go in the reverse order of when we started, so Kyellen, we'll start with you this time.
Thanks for coming, everyone. I am Kyellen. You can find my music on Spotify and on... if you search for my name as Kyellen, you can also find my music on Bandcamp. And 50 original tracks, all available with Creative Commons licensing on soundcloud.com/Kyellen-cc. And thanks very much for coming, and thanks, Luna, for hosting.
Thank you for coming. It was so great to get to have you on again and get to catch up a little bit. So maybe next time we'll actually get to go out for ice cream.
Aha, yes.
Benjamin.
Hey everybody, I'm TG Benjamin. You can find me on Twitter, TG Benjamin1. I'm the host of the Lawful Great Adventures podcast, Pathfinder First Edition podcast about 4 friends on a long journey home. You can also catch me on Thursdays on Aspergenesis Revelation, hosted by Atomic Zero, and on Roll for Chaos's Delinquents, where I play like 8 freaking characters. Ty, I swear to God, if you add one more, I'm coming to find you. Also, give me a follow at @great_lawful to watch updates on the new adversary system that is going to be going to Kickstarter in September. Thank you very much, Luna. Thank you much, everyone that I've met here, and of course to the people that I already know. This was a blast. One of the finest conversations with some of the finest people I've ever had the pleasure of talking TTRPG with. Back to you.
Benjamin is also auditioning for the Micro Machines guy position, so
I read pharmaceutical side effects as a side hustle.
That also could double as a villain monologue. Side effects may include. All right. Well, thank you, Ben, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to get to hang out. And I agree. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm really, really glad that you all got to be here together. Matri.
Thank you for having me. I had just a blast. This was the best. I had such a good time. And thank you, everybody, for your wonderful questions in chat. And thank you, everybody here, for giving us the space to talk about some really interesting and insightful stuff. I make videos on YouTube at My3 Plays Games, and they're system agnostic, really about, things I like from different systems and things to sort of keep in mind when you're playing different games, as both a GM and as a player. I'm also My3 Games on Twitter, where I'll be following all of these fine folk for sure. but thank you, everybody, and thank you, Lynn, for having me.
Yeah, thank you. This was so great. I'm super glad that we connected. I had a blast getting to chat with you, so thank you so much.
Too.
Tom and Bodhi, I'll turn it over to both of you.
You go first.
What's Pardon Party, people? We are Homie and the Dude, the father and son TTRPG and MMA team. We do a bunch of different stuff, some things that you should check out if you're interested in anything that we've said or interested in just hearing our voices. Tonight are things like our actual play podcast, The Sky Realm, a world set in floating islands with much oppression and rebellion and justice to be done. Other than that, we also have a newsletter where you get free D&D supplements. You also get entered into our family-made Excel dice giveaways, as well as also getting updates on our upcoming airship combat Kickstarter that we are working towards at the moment, which will be coming most likely early next year. So you can also give feedback and contribute ideas to that. We're in conversation with a bunch of beautiful people at the moment that are chipping in ideas and telling us what we can't have in and what we must have in, which is great. Also, I just wanted to say from me, before passing over to Tom, thank you everyone in this call so much. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you all. Absolutely kick-ass people, and you deserve all the love and respect in the world. As well as that, anyone who's contributed anything in the chat tonight, thanks for doing that. We really appreciate it, and it made staying up till 3 a.m. here for us in the UK really worth it. So thanks for putting a beautiful ender on my Sunday. I've had a great weekend, and this was a real good cap on the end of the weekend for me. So thanks for that. Go for it, dude.
Yeah, no, you've covered all the plugs. I just want to thank the guests here and Luna. There were some really important topics covered tonight, and I'm going to go away and ponder those a little bit more. And I invite anyone who is watching this to take some time and think about some of those as well. But there was also some really fun moments, and I just welcomed the conversation and the camaraderie. It was really cool. And thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. Nice meeting you guys, and thanks to everyone who's been looking.
We took lots of notes of all the amazing stuff you guys said for us to think about and check out, systems to go check out, and all that good stuff.
Orbital Blues is on one of them, big time. 10 Candles is on another one. So yeah, thank you for the tips and 100%. And the camaraderie. It's been really fun.
You guys are absolutely awesome.
It has been a great night. Really awesome conversation tonight. Thank you all so much for coming on and hanging out, and Bodhi and Tom for staying up until 3 a.m. Really appreciate it. I am Gamer Mom Luna. This has been Tales from the Tavern. We're here just about every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's see. Anything coming up? Yes, at the end of August, I will be participating in a charity stream with Necklace the Druid and Vertrox Nightblood and a bunch of other really amazing people, where we are playing a system that Vertrox wrote called Wave Racers, and basically Weave Racers, I'm sorry, and we basically are essentially playing a TTRPG version of Mario Kart. So it's going to be a blast, and there's going to be a whole bunch of rounds over the course of the weekend, and it's going to be awesome, and everybody should come check that out. So keep an eye on Twitter, where more details will be coming. And that's about it. So we are going to go...
Danielle.
I have a quick plug. Everyone check out the Chaotic Wonderful Summer Indie Festival. No, seriously, check it out. If you're interested in some of the systems we've been talking about, they're playing some of them. So
Nice.
Chaotic Wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah, check it out.
That
sounds like you're
awesome.
playing wacky races in that new TTRPG or something like that, like the old school Wacky Races cartoon.
Yeah, something like that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I have to get my button gear and come up with a vehicle because I haven't done that yet.
I'm not sure if the pun was intended, but I'm here for it.
That was a good one, though. In gear, I like it.
And you can follow me on Twitter for more bad puns.
No, but you can though.
What's that?
Yeah, seriously.
No, seriously, you can.
Though. Like if you know her feed, they're on there.
They're on there. It's true. My best friend came up with today's. It was if you have a spell or if your healer transposes a couple of letters in their spell and they cast the wrong spell, then you've had a clerical error.
Wow.
So there you go.
Bombshell.
You get more gems like that on Twitter.
I love it.
All right, we are gonna go raid our friend Midwest Miniature Guy. He is painting miniatures and is a very, very awesome person. Does incredible work. So please feel free to drop him a follow and say hello. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. We will see you all next Sunday. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.
Night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Tales from the Tavern. You can catch this podcast recorded live every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/GamerMomLuna. All of our questions come directly from chat, so we never really know what to expect when we go live. If you ever have a question or would like to add something to the conversation, feel free to reach out on Twitter at GamerMomLuna and use the hashtag TFTT. You may just get to hear it answered. Thanks so much.
I should go.